I will call this regular council meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. Lonely Nathan over there, would you lead us in the pledge tonight?
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you'd remain standing for just a minute, please. Heavenly Father, tonight we remember the one-year anniversary of the passing of Officer Cottrell of the Danville Police Department. We ask, Lord, that you continue to answer their prayers and provide some comfort to the family and to fellow officers. And how fitting that after a 2-year journey, we as a city come full circle tonight with the first reading of our new police station. We ask, Lord, that you continue to bless us as we undertake this huge historical project for the next few years. And we thank you for all of the positive input from our elected officials, city leaders, and our residents over the past few years also, that showed not only support for the project, but showed a continued and loyal support for our boys in blue who protect and serve us. We ask for all of this tonight in your holy name. Amen. Kathy, roll when you're ready.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here. Here.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum present. As I mentioned before at the public hearing, Suzanne will be here shortly. She's at parent-teacher conferences, and she'll be here as soon as she can. And I believe Scott and Alan are out ill tonight, so BJ will be answering any questions for Scott and Alan. Okay, first thing on the agenda tonight would be citizens' comments. And before we get to our residents, we have Sharon Jurowitz and Mr. King, no relation. We're here to talk about our police station update. So we'll start with you folks tonight so that you can give us a little presentation, and we'll go through some questions, and then of course you're welcome to take off and go home. It's been a long day. Thank you for coming.
Good evening.
Just to follow up on your prayer, we are extremely pleased to be part of such an important project that you acknowledged in your prayer for the police department. I'm very pleased to be involved.
Thank you.
And I've enjoyed the relationship very much. It's been a great committee effort. I've really had a great conversation with the team. So with that, Sharon, do you all have a package of the renderings, et cetera? Great. Sharon will walk you through that information, and I'll walk you through the process.
Actually, everybody but me. Do you have an extra? You can have mine. I'll just, okay. We'll use
You have
Suzanne
11 by
for right now.
17s? Is that what you have 11 by 17s? We get that rather than the smaller version. That'd be great.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, that's all right. You're fine. I'll squint.
The first page of the packet were the updated color renderings from what we had shown previously. It's very similar to what we had presented the last time that we were here. The main difference of this presentation is that we had moved the mechanical enclosure from the north side of the building to the west side of the building. And that on this top elevation would be towards the right-hand side, and it's hidden behind the wall of the brick and the columns. That's where the front of that enclosure is going to look exactly like the building. The other two sides of that enclosure will be more of a fence-like structure, but the front will match the building. The other changes that we have from last time are just slight. We were just updating some of the materials and trim and the flagpoles, the signage on the building, putting the address on there, some letters above the overhead doors on the back elevation, just some small things like that we did to update the elevations. The second page in your packet is the black and white versions of each of the four sides of the building, and then the bottom drawing that we have there is just showing what the north side or the front of the cruiser shelter would look like, where it would be a series of columns to hold up the roof. We would try to have the cruiser shelter look as much like the building as possible, the same roofing shingles, pick up the same columns along the front. And we would do a combination of brick and siding, just like the main building would have. The next page is the plan itself. Last time we presented it, we showed it with various different colors, and we were trying to coordinate from what you had seen previously in the needs assessment to the plan. It was color coordinated that way. This time we were just presenting it in a different manner, and this helps with you to understand the budget when we get to that. But this divides the building up into 3 different categories. The first kind of peach tan color is the typical office building. These are things that you would see in any typical office building that you would work in. It would just have the staff restrooms, the offices, conference rooms, the support rooms, items like that. The yellow area are the community areas where we have the large training room. We have extra restrooms to accommodate those larger gatherings. And we have the lobby is a lot larger to accommodate that function as well. Then the blue really gets into what the police department needs, and that's what we have labeled here specialty. That's the police department things, the different interview rooms, the locker rooms, physical training, the temporary holding facility of the jail itself, the vehicle bays, evidence storage and labs, the armory. So those are all specialty items that we have incorporated into this building.
One purpose of doing that for you is to indicate how a building like, a special building like this for the police department becomes the size that it does is because of the size of the typical office. Percentage.
Typical is 43 and the specialty is 43, so you can just see, how much of it is going specifically for the police department.
We thought that'd be helpful for you to get especially the use of the facility.
And the plan itself hasn't changed much from the last time we presented it. There have been some changes in the temporary holding area itself, and that's based on specific needs that the police department wanted, and also items that the Bureau of Adult Detention is looking for, so we've tweaked that area a little bit. And then there's also been some changes with the training and the physical training area and the storage room that they have between that. This gives them a lot of flexibility of how to use those training rooms for the best ability for them. So those are really the only changes on the plan itself. That, and like I said, the mechanical enclosure is now on that west side of the building. The next drawing is the site plan. And this shows in red, we have it in color. In red are the property lines that are existing right now. We also have a green line horizontally across the bottom. We've been talking a lot with Scott and looking at changing that south property line. So the entire project, the building and the carport, the parking is all enclosed in this new parcel. So then the park becomes its own separate parcel of land. That will help just really clarify the zoning for now and in the future. Also in the site plan, last time we had shown 2 different options, one with the building pushed more towards the west, so you could have more green space along Park Street on the east side, and then we showed one where we line up more with this existing building, and that is the option that we went with based on your recommendation. So the new building and also the carport would all basically line up along the site. This drawing also talks about the different amounts of parking, what you currently have and what is proposed. And we feel that there will be plenty of parking with this new project.
Just in case you're not aware, Scott did a really good study of your parking. He actually looked at every 2 hours.
that if anyone wants to see it or if you have questions on that. And then the last sheet of this packet was the site plan that the civil engineer is working on that shows all of the utilities and the grading and all of that information of the site, showing the proximity to the Park Street and the different buildings here. This is our proposed footprint and layout of the new building. If you have any questions on utilities, I could go into more detail, but I don't want to bore you.
You won't bore me.
I know. I'm looking at you.
yeah.
You're excited to ask some
I
questions.
do. I
about
have
it.
a couple here, but I don't want to wait
Especially
until
when you're on 8.5 by 11. You
I can
can't
see this
read it.
stuff. That's all right. I'm good. If you're okay with me asking questions at the point?
Absolutely.
Okay. So the swales that you're proposing, those are your water quality and detention swales? Is that
Yes.
correct? On the north side and on the west side?
Yes.
It looks like the one on the north side's about a foot deep. Is that about right?
Yes.
And then the one on the east side looks maybe 4 feet deep?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. I'm trying to count your topography here, and
I think they were both about a foot deep.
okay.
Honestly, I can't read it either with
Okay.
my eyes, but yeah, from what we talked about with Jobs Henderson, yeah, they would just both be just the slightest swale, and to the naked eye, you're not going to notice, like, oh my goodness, there's this giant dip here.
Are they able to be landscaped?
Yes.
Okay.
So we can, the north one, we're thinking is just going to be grass.
Right.
Good question, which we're not showing on this right now, but this west side of the property is going to be heavily landscaped. Our landscape package, we're looking at being very minimal. We think the building looks really nice, personally, and we don't think that we need to do much landscaping around the building itself, but we do want to do a lot of landscaping on that west side. We have a new dumpster location, we have a transformer, we have that enclosure, even though it will look nice, but still, it's not the best looking thing. And it could have some noise, so we're gonna try to landscape all along that west side.
Okay.
The rest of the building really isn't gonna have much. Police stations, we try to keep it as minimal as possible, so we don't want bushes or people to hide behind and things like that, so we try to keep as much green carpet, grass around the perimeter of the building as possible.
Great.
Also, what we've noticed over the years is commercial work, and there's a brick, and with the deep hole, you want to excavate water, bring water out. Never fails. They put the mulch beds down to cover up the weep holes. So we said, not doing that. We don't want to take that chance. If water can't come out of the cavity space. And I like that green carpet coming up against the building. I like our philosophy on landscaping is ornamental trees or any kind of tree for that matter, or special planting, are framing devices. We like to use them when there's a special point of the building that you want to give emphasis to. So for instance, of course, path entrance and the public entrance, other than screening devices. And that's a work in progress.
Okay. Another quick question. Sanitary relocation. I noticed that we're doing a minor sanitary relocation. Do you have any idea how deep that sanitary is? Two reasons why. Obviously, we're going to undermine the footers possibly by digging. First of all, are we going to leave the sanitary in place, or are we going to have to remove that sanitary, the existing?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
Except it will not go under the building.
Right. So my next question is, if it's not under the building, do we absolutely have to relocate that sanitary line?
We'll ask Ethan that question.
Okay.
The existing sanitary line, from what I recall from the site survey, is that, and on the drawing, the sanitary line where, at the south end where it hits the cruiser shelter, existing, it goes almost straight north until it gets to the pump or the lift
Right.
north of this building. So we're rerouting that around the west side of
Right.
the new building.
Exactly. So what I guess I'm asking is just a two-part question. If it does go under the proposed building now, to dig that up and remove it, you're going to have to do some type of granular or some type of structural fill to try to hold up the building. If it's not under the building, do we absolutely have to remove it?
Check.
And if we don't have to remove it, can we leave it in place and utilize it in place? So those are three questions. Okay.
My understanding is that they're removing it because we're balancing out the site. The west end of the site is higher than the east end. And so if it's at an angle, we're kind of cutting through the middle and balancing out the grades. So I think once we do that, we're gonna be getting close to where that existing sanitary line is.
So do you think it's a force main rather than a gravity? The force main would be very shallow. What is it, Nate?
It's gravity.
It's gravity, so it's got to be
It's the service line
To the-
from the park.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the building. It's a 6-inch.
Yeah.
But it terminates at the lift station. But as far as the depth, I can't tell you that.
So Nate, I guess I would ask you, can you work with them to see if we have to remove that? It's an expense that may or may not be necessary. If it's only a service to the thing back there, I mean, that seems pretty minor.
Oh, no, I would agree.
So, okay. Just trying to save some money. I have one more quick question for you, if you don't mind. Well, I've got two, sorry. The geotech. You guys got the geotech report? Everything good with that? You guys are comfortable? There aren't any special spread footings or any kind of issues or deep footings? And then the last one, the enclosure itself, that's a generator enclosure? Is that where the generator is?
For the mechanical enclosure that's attached to the building,
Correct.
yes.
Is
The
it-
generator would be in there, and 2 condenser units are in there.
Okay, air conditioning units? Okay, are those roofed or are those open? Are those open?
It's open.
Okay. Okay, great, thank you.
Are there other questions on the drawings before we go on to the budget?
I had one. I was just curious on the cruiser shelter. Is that 3-sided, 2-sided? Is it just the ends are enclosed, or is the back?
We've looked at different options for that. We definitely need the short ends and a portion of the south end to be enclosed. Structurally, we want that triangulation of the building. Right now, we're showing that there would be some columns in there and some fencing, but we've also talked about having that whole south wall completely enclosed, which is probably the way that we're leaning towards right now. Our structural engineer is looking at what exactly we need to do to make that 3-sided roofed structure work. And then the north end would just have a series of columns that line up with every other parking space that's in there.
Okay, the way the wind comes, it might protect the cars a lot if it's inexpensive to have the back enclosed, especially when the wind's whipping across, coming from that way. I just was curious. That's it.
Any other questions before we move on?
Yeah. Where's the dumpster going to be? I don't know if that
Between the
came
two
up.
buildings.
The dumpster has to be relocated, and it is going to go further north on the site. So your existing parking lot, if you take the southernmost part of the paved parking that you have existing now, the trucks would come straight in, and the trash dumpster would be in the grass area, right in line with that south parking.
Okay. Thanks.
And then adjacent to that would be where the new generator would be.
Okay.
You guys have an existing generator, and we looked at using that generator for the new building also, and it won't accommodate the new building, so we'll have a second generator.
The generator we have is where? Is that at City Hall?
Your existing generator,
Police
yeah.
station.
At police station, okay.
Police
I'm sorry, I
station.
thought you were saying there was one out there. I'd never seen one.
No, we don't have a
I'm
generator
sorry,
here.
Transformer.
Oh,
So
transformer,
sorry.
there you go.
Your existing transformer is here. We're having a second one that will be just south of the trash.
Nope, just, is that included in your budget numbers? Okay. Gotcha. We'll wait for that, okay.
Any other questions before we move on to the numbers? All right.
Okay.
I do have copies for.
Yeah, does anybody need a copy of the estimate?
No,
You all have that.
Everybody
I have it in my packet.
The upper
Should be good.
half of the page there where it says hard cost, we break that into 4 categories: site work, the building shell, of course, all of the interior work, and then I always like to show the contractor markup. an idea of just what kind of expense that is. Plus, if we change something on the drawings, and therefore I change the estimate, it's always easier to refigure the estimate when I keep the markup separate. Markups include general conditions, profit and overhead numbers, and the bonds you would have in the project, contractors would have in the project. So as you can see there, the site work is at $377,700. Building shell is at $831,900. The building interiors at $2,130,800, and then the markups relative to those three numbers is $689,500. So your total hard cost is $4,029,900. And then you can see the tabulation just underneath that. The gross square feet of the building, this is the building, not the carport, and also it's separate, is 16,744. So the average cost per square foot with this, the 241 that you see there. You can see what we're saying does not include, just so that there's no issues about other potential costs. For instance, an obvious one is there's no radio tower built into this, of their communication by other means. The soft costs, the other major category, into three subcategories. The fees, that's not only the contract that you have with our firm, but we have allowances in there for the building permit. We have a legal allowance in there for instance, if you do general obligation bonds, you would have that legal expense to that process. What else do I have in there? Do you have that handy? The survey and the subsurface soils investigation, those have already been done, and so the numbers are in there. And that pretty much covers it. So that's a variety of fees at $584,100. Miscellaneous, that's things for like the bid documents, printing and distribution, which frankly, if you go, everything now is through the internet, so that's basically a zero number. But what we'd have to print for building departments, that kind of a little bit of allowance in there. And the legal notice that you would have. Those are relatively small numbers. And the furnishings, equipment, conference tables, chairs, that sort of thing, workstations, $50,000 allowance for that. So your soft cost in the total of that is the $769,100. And then on the contingency funds, that's really geared to the construction and bidding cycle, especially the construction cycle. We had a higher number at one time, but because our soils report indicated that really good shape, have any below grade surprises, we actually reduced the allowance for the contingency fund. It is a very simple building. The structural system, the repetitive system, and develop, so there shouldn't be any issues, coordination of disciplines, whatever. So that's $100,000. So your total cost for the building, and site work, and landscaping is $4,899,000. And then below that, at the bottom of the sheet, as you can see, we're suggesting one alternate. We always like to keep alternates to amendment if they're small, but this is a significant number. That gives us a good alternate, and that's the shelter itself. For that, for about 4,100 square feet. We like to, whenever we can, to have an alternate that's easy for contractors to bid. This only involves two disciplines: the general work, steel, asphalt shingles, the framing of it, and electric. Have power there, and out to there as well. So it's really easy for them to do that. Anything that we can do to facilitate the contractor bidders to put their numbers together, the better that we see. Instead of having a project for 20 alternates, oh my God, it's like, that's a red flag for them. So we keep it simple. It's also a good way, because it has a real value to it, cost-wise, it's a way to protect it for the base bid. As we see over, then we know that we have this number as a set aside. If they come in really well, then it allows you to pick it up. So we have a real rationale for having at least the one alternate. So, any questions on that?
Who wants to start?
Well, the first question I have, you probably said it, but I want to make sure. Within the soft cost, the fees, the 584.1, can you very quickly take me through what that is again?
Sure. It is, thank you. That is the survey, the site survey, which is accomplished. The subsurface soils investigation, again, as we said, is accomplished. We had a line item originally for environmental. We thought if we needed to do a phase one research, environmental research, but working with the department and Jobs Henderson, we all felt that that wasn't necessary, so I took it out. I have a number in there for legal counsel, the A&E, the architects and engineering fees through our firm, the building permit, an allowance for utility charges, bond counsel, and I make a point of, in the full document of pointing out that we do not have lead commissioning fee in the soft cost fees. If you wanted to go to a lead certified project, there would be additional fees that go through that process. So I always make a point of saying, just please, for confusion, that's not included.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Just let the record show, Mrs. Hayes has joined us at 7:27. Next questions? Andy?
In the landscaping package that you're talking about, the simple one, which I agree with 100%, is there any signage involved in that as far as on Broad Street or any kind of notification? We have a park sign out front. We have a city hall sign out front. Is there some, have you guys looked at that for signage for the police station?
Have an allowance in the site work up in the hard cost for that.
For a sign of some
Separate
type?
from the landscaping budget. We
Okay.
also have a separate line item for site lighting,
Okay.
separate from the landscaping. So it's a conversation that we'll continue to explore. We've had some conversation about identifying the building.
Okay.
We've yet to be determined.
Great.
Go ahead, Andy.
Couple more.
You got the floor.
Yep. As far as the cruiser shelter itself, if the project comes in at or just slightly above budget, and we decide not to do that alternate with this initial construction, what type of plans are you putting together? Is this something that's easily prepped? Can we run electric out there? Can we make sure the hose bib is out there? Obviously, we're not going to put foundations. Well, I don't know. Do we put in foundations that are ready for a structure to be attached to? What's your thoughts on that?
Any of those would be an advantage for the future. So as we get the bids come in, that's obviously something we would explore.
Okay.
Certainly, anything that's below the surface would be an advantage to get them in.
Okay.
So we could plumb it and we could run electric. It's already going to be blacktop. Is that enough foundation for what you build on? No. Okay.
It's like a
It would have separate foundations for the structure.
Okay.
So instead of tearing up the asphalt to put in your foundations, could you put your foundations in and have them ready to attach to?
Certainly. So that's a good question, and that's obviously we would explore them individually.
Okay. I got one more.
Sure.
Promise. Radio and communication equipment. Is that something that you guys have accounted for? Obviously we have radio equipment at the other police station, but they have to be operational until this is operational. How do you deal with the?
You don't have anything in there for the specific equipment.
We dispatch through the sheriff's office.
So you're going to do a potential week or 2 days or whatever you have to do to move everything over?
We don't actually have a system.
Oh, you don't?
We do all of our communications through a walkie. The MARC system works very, very well out here. We don't need a base unit.
Perfect.
And if I can just piggyback on that, one of the other things that is a big cost can be a server, but they just recently got a new server, so that'll just be moved over.
So for the only downtime we would have, the girls that answer the phones would not be answering the phones. We would let it go through Licking County, and our officers would be dispatched accordingly.
Yeah, that's not even a downtime. It would be business as usual.
Yeah, the phones would be working
Yeah,
here,
as soon as
so.
this building's up and
Sure.
running, they just report here versus 430 South Main, and it's no issue at all.
Very good. Anything else, Andy? Now's the time.
Now's the time. I do have one last question on the site work. The through road that you've got over to Conine, is that a paved road or is that a gravel road?
We were looking at that as being gravel.
Okay.
Then
Is that what's called out here, dedicated through road? You guys are excluding dedicated through road, and I'm not sure what that meant in your,
That would be Park Street.
okay, I understand. So you're not talking about that. That road's included in your site work, the gravel,
The parking lot,
Yeah, the secondary access that we have to there, yes.
Okay.
We would still have the asphalt and the curb in the actual parking lot, and then we'd have a gravel section in between. We talked about doing a curb cut and that, and having a slope, but the chief said they would just go up and over the few rare times that they need to go through there. We want to try to cut down on anyone else trying to get back in from that side.
it's gonna be my next question. Is that something that's gonna be gated, or is that gonna have some kind of bollards, some knockdown bollards or something?
We haven't discussed it. It's actually on my list for our next meeting, was to talk about what that would be, whether it's two posts and we have a chain across there, or if it's ballers that you remove the middle one, something like that we would have at that side.
Thanks.
I asked this upstairs, but I think the parking spaces within the carport are extra wide.
Yes.
So,
They're
and
12 feet wide. Yeah, we try to do that wherever we're going to have cruisers parked. It just gives them a lot more room to get in and out with their duty bags and all the equipment that they have.
given that length, or I guess that's width, how many cruisers do you anticipate getting in there? And have you talked to the chief about how many cruisers that is? Are they all accommodated? Is it all but two? Is it?
We have 14 spaces that would be covered in the shelter.
Okay.
Anything else?
I don't think so.
Well, you can think about it a little bit. Todd?
I think Mrs. Carter is.
Okay.
I moved to the end and you don't even look down here?
I was working my way down.
I need a shusher of my own. No, it's, it's less of a question and more of a statement. When we first started these discussions, it was very important that obviously we were frugal and only did what we needed and not, we're not building the Taj Mahal. We want, but also to make sure that we are building in a way that can be added to if necessary in the future. So we don't end up with space restrictions like what we have now. And putting the foundations in for future, pieces is something that is really important. In addition to using as much in-house work as possible from our own employees versus contracting things out. I mean, it goes without being said, but
we built personnel expansion into the program. For the old facility, always design one level of temporary, one level of a holding, classified holding area, that it can easily move to the second level. So in your case, you have a temporary holding facility, which is our time period. Organize it and design it, and therefore the cost estimate reflects that it could minimal work, move up to the next level in 12 hours.
okay.
Maybe you do that, maybe you don't, but you can easily accommodate that.
Also in the records area, have talked about if you needed dispatching to be moved in-house, that you have the ability, not completely easy, but you have the ability to do it in the footprint that is provided.
And I'll point out too, as you mentioned, not having a class at all, you can do really fine drawings with typical materials, no accident with the traffic and materials like that. It's going to be very handsome facility. We'll spend money where it's very important to do that. Holding area is another example of that. Another example is in the lobby, we'll have bullet-resistant construction. So the windows in the clerk's area, the wall, not just the window, the wall, the door, the frame that goes into the interview room, off the entry that would also get to the safe room. That's all bullet-resistant construction. And the hardware, for instance, if somebody goes in there who's under stress, being chased by somebody, they run into that room, they shut the door, it's locked. Hardware that allows that to happen. Those kinds of things where you're building on after
Anything else? I know the person that usually, people that usually sit in that chair are chomping at the bit with lots of questions. So, you have anything else?
No. I'm changing the vibe down here.
I won't forget you. Don't worry.
I won't
Todd?
let you.
I kind of forgot about this. Are we going to be able to do, or could we do, mayor's court there instead of here? I know we have the conference room, community room. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I think if it's all right, we decided as a group that we're going to leave, and we brought Tanya in on this and everything. Tanya wants to stay here. I think we're going to keep Mayor's Court right here.
Curious.
Yep.
And part of it is the logistics of Tanya being here, having case files, having everything they need, instead of transporting those back and forth on Thursdays.
Yes, ma'am.
I have one more question. What about our canines? And do they require any special housing or a place for them to hang out? I mean, I know they go home with the officers, but
We do have a small area to the west side of the building that will be fenced off, where the canine dog could be outside in that fenced-in area. And there will also be a hose bib out there if they need to clean off the dog or do any of that. We also have area inside the vehicle bays that have some crates in there for the canine unit, or also for found dogs, cats, bobcats.
Yeah. Just kidding. Don't say cats. Yes, sir. You have anything else, Todd?
I think Todd had something.
No, I said wild boars. Whatever foxes.
Yes.
I do, but Andy's been down there.
It's okay. He's looking that way now. So,
We'll make the rounds
Come
here.
back to me. I'm on.
Okay.
so we have 3 canines right now, and I think we're going to try to keep that many on staff. 2 to 3.
And one is kind of day by day.
Okay. Doesn't sound good. So as far as the enclosure for the outside enclosure for the dog, is that a fenced? Is that just a chain link fence, or what is that exactly?
Right now, we're looking at the same fencing that would be around the mechanical enclosure.
Okay, so it's more of a screening or a windbreak than just a fence.
Right.
Okay.
And we haven't gotten into the exact logistics of it.
Concrete floor.
Well, that's what.
I mean, there's some
Part
things.
of it being concrete, part of it
Yeah.
being grass, depending on what they want. We haven't gotten into that too much, except just kind of the
Okay.
general size and location. So we have the plumbing running there, and it's close enough to that exterior door on the side that the officer can go in and out easily from that side.
Great.
Anything else? How about you, Suzanne? Anything?
Well, I was just, Andy kind of asked the question about the fencing, because I was just concerned about being able to see through the fence. Just keep the dog, the dog, that it's not out in the open, so that people mess with it if they're walking by or anything like that.
We're also going to have lots of landscaping on that side.
Right.
So I think that
Keep
will-
fingers out of the area if kids are walking by, going to the park.
Right.
That's what I was thinking. Thank you, though.
Tommy?
Yeah, we talked about this upstairs, but I just felt that it was important for everybody here to hear it as well. About the accreditation, being the 5-star accreditation. Is it still 5 stars, or is it 6 now?
I think it's
Okay. One of the 5 stars being the building itself, if that's a future goal. The question that I asked upstairs is does this building meet that level, accreditation level, I guess would be the right choice of words, so that they wouldn't have to go back and make any changes to receive that part. Basically, what I'm saying is it's that part, that 1/5 is done with this station. There'd have to be anything future to make it to that level. So, and you guys answered that it wasn't, so I thought it's ready to go. I thought that was important for everyone to hear.
4 codes that get involved with. One, of course, is the building code. A subset of that would be accessibility issues. Another one is CALEA, the National Association that deals with accreditation. We make sure we always have their up-to-date catalog of quality side. Another one is to do with adult attendance. We have their classification. And as I mentioned earlier about starting off with the THF, we need criteria as well.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Of course, it is just the first reading tonight, but if there's no more questions, then thank you for the presentation and the update and the getting it under 5 million. That's a nice touch, and I think everybody's questions were answered. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, how exciting is that?
Pretty exciting.
Okay. Citizens' comments, we're still under that. Anybody wish to speak tonight? Okay, seeing no one. Introduction, discussion, and approval of consent agenda matters.
So moved.
Moved by Mr.
Second.
Barstow
Second.
and seconded by Mrs. You're going to have to speak up a little bit now. You're not right next to me
I wasn't
anymore.
quiet. You are deaf on your right ear, though, just so for the record.
I think she said many things to me over the last few years. That,
He had no idea.
okay. Seconded by Mrs. Carter. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes?
Yes.
Consent agenda passes. Okay, on to reports. Got a email from the our American Legion. They're starting up a American Legion Women's Auxiliary. So if you know anybody, any of the ladies that are either a veteran or blood related or married to a veteran, they are starting a women's auxiliary of the American Legion, and our post is very active, as most of you know. I know we had talked about, let's see. Well, Alan's not here tonight, so I'm going to say that for when Alan's here, but I'll just say real quick that we have a very happy resident in Barrington Ridge due to the fact that Alan and BJ reached out to him on a personal level, our veteran, and helped him with some questions. So I'll give some kudos to Alan next time. Kudos to, and you can pass this along, Tim, at the next fire board meeting. At our last Lions Club meeting, we realized our Summit Station Lions Club building had never been inspected. And I called for an inspection and had an inspection the next day, and the paperwork was done. Well, let's see, the meeting was at 8 o'clock, and the paperwork was on my desk at noon, making sure that the Summit Station Lions Club was safe for everybody used. So please pass that along.
I will.
Let's see. We had a great day. Did you want to talk about the bell ringing when you talked
No,
about
I can. No, go ahead. It's fine,
Okay.
because I'll do it anyway, whatever you leave out.
Okay. You know, one of the fun things is when we do something as a community, and of course it had surfaced a year or so ago that they were going to restore the bell in the elementary school, and didn't know what they were getting into, but yeah, I don't think it took really that much effort or money, but on January 4th, we well, Mr. Hicken was there. Suzanne was there, obviously, because she's teaching there. We had 641 kids come outside, and we had a little presentation, and then we rang that bell for the first time in, what did we say, 150 years?
No, we rang it 8 years ago.
Oh,
When I
okay.
was teaching fourth grade, we rang it until it came off the pulley.
Oh, okay.
So we would ring it in the morning.
All right.
I was probably the one that did it it's probably my fault.
But I believe as the history went, it was the original bell from the elementary that was over on Main Street and then got transported there. But the kids wrote me the kids had all went back to their rooms, all 641 of them, and did a little art project, and they sent me a letter. Dear Mayor Compton, students this is from Mrs. Trenish, who's one of the teachers down there. Students in my second grade classroom wrote about the bell ringing. Wanted to share one with you. This was the bell that Logan did for me. all the students loved your top hat. We're happy to learn that what you do in Pataskala, and they're looking forward to learning more about you in the 3rd grade. Thanks for all your work bringing back traditions to Pataskala. Someone mentioned to me that there used to be a siren on top of the old town hall, and it would sound for the volunteer fire department, and also every evening at 6 p.m., which I don't think we did it every night at 6 p.m., but we did every night at 6 p.m.
You vote for that, Rich.
I guess that's when
You vote for that.
you knew to go home for dinner. Okay, yeah. In fact,
Dinner bell.
in fact, this little kid that Lonnie McGowan had mentioned to her that when one started to go off, he had to be back at home or he was in big trouble. So it would be wonderful to try and track that down and bring back that tradition too. I don't know about bringing back the tradition of ringing it every day at 6, but we have we did. The siren was property of the fire department, which we now have in one of our bays, and we're starting to restore it. So I don't know if it'll end up on top of the theater again, but or the old town hall, but at least we're working on it, and we'll have to crank it up. And
It'll be fun at the street fair.
it would be fun at the street fair if everybody was wearing earmuffs. So we'll see.
Once
Maybe
at the
something
street fair,
at the
once a
fireworks
year.
or something. So anyway, I thought that was neat, and
Just once.
and I think, let's see. Oh, and of course Scott's not here either, but our Lions Club wants to build an addition onto our existing building, and I asked Lisa for some information, and I got a whole folder full of information, a shot from Google Earth, everything that we needed to do, an application. It was just top notch. So when these guys are here, of course, I'll reiterate that again. But the departments are spot on with some of this stuff, and I appreciate it. So I'm passing that on to you, Mr.
I see that you are. I got it.
Okay, very good. All right. Council President.
I have a couple things. I forwarded my fire board packet to everybody as always. One of the things that we did talk about a little bit was revisiting the fire department's emergency plan, and that's just a kernel to put back in the brain of the administration that we did talk about throwing some effort at coming up with an emergency plan for situations for the city. And if they're working on theirs, this would indeed be a good time for us to work on ours. So, if you remember at the last meeting, we talked a little bit about council rules of order. Mr. Lee and I are going to sit down with Ms. Hoskinson to refresh your memories. That's going to be an addendum to council rules of order on formalizing how we fill vacancies for council seats, and also a slight shifting of the agenda. It's not a giant deal, so we didn't do anything with it tonight, but so that reports come before old business, and we'll be working on that. We hopefully we'll have that ready by the next meeting. The HR, it's if you look at what we pledged to do regarding the HR committee. And that was a regular evaluations of Mr. King and Mr. Nicholson. Now we're at the beginning of the year, and so I would like to recall the HR committee pretty much by rule. I think Tommy and I are on it, being the president and vice president. Mr. Barstow was nice enough to throw his hat in that ring as well. So unless anybody else has any dire desires to be on there. I think the greatest work was done last year. I think it's pretty much just a matter of having the HR committee or somebody send out the evaluations to council members, and I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel unless anybody looks at them and has something significant from a change from how we did it last time. But I don't think it'll be. I'm hoping that this time is much easier and much quicker. So. Look for that to come out of the HR committee, or maybe just from myself or Mr. Lee or Mr. Barstow. One of the things we never finished up with last time was we had an open meetings, workshop scheduled with a new member on, with Mike on, somebody who might have some open meetings questions. One of the things that I wanted to see as, I don't know if it's an alternative to a workshop, because I think, well, we scheduled the workshop, we didn't have a quorum, maybe because of illness, maybe because some people just felt that wasn't necessary. But Kathy has been nice enough to forward to me the open, can you help me out here, Kathy? The open meetings online training session. And so I think I'll forward that to everybody on council and see. I don't know, for those people that are attorneys, it may be ridiculous, or it may get you continuing education credits. I don't know. But I would encourage all the council to go online and refresh your memory and come back with any specific questions to Mr. Zetz, because I think that's important, unless you have any other input on that, Mr. Zetz.
No, that's fine. Anybody, you can always, if you have any questions, let me know. I always think it's good I don't know exactly what that tutorial is or that course, but I think it's always good. I mean, I read that manual probably once a week when people have questions. It's always good to refer to. So if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to help. Or if you want to put something on, take a half hour or something after you have it and you have other questions, you want to do some formal, where you can have a quorum present or something, I'd be happy to do that too.
I appreciate that. The other thing is, look for a couple of questions from leadership. I have begun to, one of the questions involves, believe it or not, smoking age in the city. Lots of cities around us have raised the smoking age. And so there's been some questions from businesses in the area saying, are we thinking about that? And I'm not at the point where I really want to propose legislation on it necessarily, but the mayor talked to me about it, and I may just send something out. Don't be surprised if you see something about that. I don't know necessarily where I stand on it or where anybody stands on it, because I haven't asked anybody, but Reynoldsburg, possibly Columbus. Help me out, Tommy. Do you know the other one? Bexley. There's lots of places around, and I don't necessarily know how everybody is going to end up feeling about it. And this is changing the purchase age to 21 within the city itself. If all those places are changing it to that, I don't know if it's going to drive thousands of teenagers here to buy smokes or cigarettes, but I did so look for that. The other thing is drones. I have had a couple of people recently talk to me about drone regulations in the city. I talked to the chief. He was nice enough to spend some time with me, and I also talked to Scott, and both of them said that they would be in favor of not going hog wild, but at least maybe citing exactly what the drone regulations are in the city. So I have some electronic copies of stuff I thought I would send, and just to start kernels of thought going in case we decide to have that discussion. And that's all for me.
Mr. Zetz.
Well, just speaking of public open meetings and those kernels of thought that he's going to distribute, make sure you don't start to have any email conversations, because then your kernels of thoughts will turn into public meetings, which won't be noticed properly, and then we'll have to have a real session about what to do and not to do, because you will have violated the Open Meetings Act.
No, thank you.
About the Open Meetings Act?
Just a quick little reminder. Also, with respect to the amending the council rules and stuff, just be mindful of 2.04 in the council rules, which is a specific method by which the council rules have to be amended, and that is you have to have that thing actually read before the meeting. What the motion has to be made by motion, but then the motion has to be read at the meeting preceding which the motion is going to be acted on. So that's a really funky way, just something to think about.
One whole meeting before it can be enacted.
Right, it has to be read. So the motion has to be made and read, but then acted on at the subsequent meeting. That's all.
Okay, very good. Mr. King?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple items. First of all, when Mr. Haynes and Mr. Fulton's spots come up for reports, I'll cover a couple things and give some highlights from their reports. Earlier today, I sent out an email to council as it relates to board appointments and who's responsible for appointing some of these boards and commission members. In the past, specifically the Board of Zoning Appeals and Planning Commission, it was a mayoral appointment with a confirmation by the majority of council. That was changed in our recent charter amendments, where those appointments now are just by majority confirmation from council. So we will be proceeding as such as we continue to try to fill the vacancies on those boards and commissions. Happy to answer any questions, and I had a chance to talk to Mr. Zetz about that as well. You'll notice that we have 2 new monitors up in here. Installation will be completed tomorrow with the drive that will be able to play different presentations and stuff up there. Mayor's Court will be utilizing them. And these were paid for using Mayor's Court computer funds. Since they'll be using them on Thursdays, we were able to leverage that funding to get these done. And the last thing I wanted to mention is at the last council meeting, Mr. Zetz had touched on some of the medical marijuana regulations that are in the works right now. And there was some preliminary discussion by council. And it struck me that for myself also and also for council, it would probably be beneficial to get an update from Mr. Zetz, just an informational session from him, what all this means, what it is, what it means, what we can do, if we want to do anything, if we want to leave it alone. So I'd like to dedicate some time during the February 6th meeting during his report to do that. I talked to him and he thought he could do that in about 20 or 30 minutes to provide an overview of what all this means. So my plan to proceed as such unless I am advised otherwise. And I am happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Anything for Mr. King?
BJ, on your on the new vehicles for the police department, you had said not to exceed 80,000. Do you have you guys figured out the exact number for each?
For the vehicles themselves, hang on, let me find it. I have a quote here someplace. And I don't know what I did with it, Andy, but yes, for the vehicles, oh, here we go. For the vehicles themselves, and this is without being outfitted, striped, and everything, one is $28,458, and the other is $30,149, and those are the state bid prices.
Okay. Do you have kind of a normal price to bring them up to the cruiser level?
It varies. One of them is going to be a detective car, so it's not going to have the markings and stuff, so that'll of course be cheaper. And the other one is a canine vehicle, will actually be Scott, so it will have a little bit of extra equipment. But I don't have the cost of the striping and stuff.
Okay. While we're on it, is there a recommendation as far as going from a car to an SUV for the dogs, for the canines? You know, as they get older, obviously they get harder and harder to get up into those vehicles, and in and out obviously is a problem. Have you done any research on that? Is there any kind of preference between one or the other?
In fact, Sergeant writes before Nero ended his career, he actually went back to a sedan versus the SUV. But the Ford Interceptors are actually, they're just as low. The SUVs are just as low as the Ford cars. It should not be an issue.
Is there a benefit to having the hatchback in those versus the car door for response from the dogs?
Scott, I don't know.
Getting out of the vehicle.
But the dog wouldn't exit the vehicle from the back, so no.
Okay. Very good.
Anything else for BJ? Mr. Barstow?
Well, BJ brought it up. I don't know if this is the right time, but we talked about the appointments, and I think this might be a good point to talk about the appointment / non-appointment of Mr. Dixon to the BZA, and also have Mr. Zetz weigh in on what we need to do or not do to put that to rest. Because we voted on him, we approved it, but my understanding is he's not taken office, but I just want to make sure we're not leaving something dangling out there.
Mr. Zetz?
I don't believe so. I talked to BJ actually about that whenever that was last week. He's just decided not to take the position, so I think it's now vacant, and council can go through the process and appoint someone new to the spot.
Okay. I just wanted to...
So no need to rescind the motion?
No need to rescind. I mean, you put it out there, he declined it, so now it's still vacant.
Okay, thanks. Great.
Okay. Anything else for BJ? All right, Mr. Nicholson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm pleased to announce we closed the books on 2016 on the 5th business day of January, which is only one day later than last year, and last year was our earliest we've ever closed the book. So things went along really well. I'm pleased also to report that if you had to take all the city funds, revenues exceeded expenses to the tune of about $200,000. So the comprehensive balance increased by $200,000 year over year, and that's a very positive trend. And that's the kind of stuff that, going forward, we need to see more and more of those positive contributions. And I think we'll get there. We've just been playing catch up with a lot of construction and a lot of improvements to the city. I'm really pleased about this. All of our departments now, including the police, the utility, and CAFI and other remote sites, all now have access to the SSI accounting budgetary system, which means not only can they submit their own requisitions, the paper's gone away, they go online, they submit their requisitions, they can see at any time what their current budget is, how much money they have left in a specific account. I think it goes a long way. As we talked about during the budget process, BJ and I have really kind of embraced the departments need to own these budgets. They're their budgets. Well, having access to the data, seeing what's left in their budget, then they own it, and it gives them an opportunity to better manage it. So I think that improves transparency and communication between the departments. So I think it's a very positive step. It's going to be a learning curve because obviously it's a new system for a lot of these guys. But we'll spend time with them and try to get everybody up to full speed here soon. Insurance, the annual property casualty liability insurance renewal. We are scheduled to meet with the broker next week, and so they will go over and present the proposal. I asked for it, I think it's the 24th, so we'll have it in time to put the resolution at the first meeting in February. That is the goal. So I've told them that I need it by the Wednesday morning to get on council agenda. So as soon as I get the information, I will share that with council in advance of that, but I want to let you know that that is coming. I put on each of your desks tonight a Moody's report. Moody's contacted me last Friday. Apparently this is a new process. They do annual updates on communities, on issuers. Usually when you issue debt, you sit down with them or have a conference call with them, and they ask a lot of very pointed questions, and you give them as much information and explain why you're different than everybody else. It's a very positive report on the whole. I'm really pleased by it. They're not proposing any changes, and we weren't asking for any changes. However, in light of some of the structural changes in reporting, such as our book's now showing a liability for the state pension system, even though legally we have no liability for that, but that's how GAAP accounting now requires us to report. It looks overall very positive for the city, so I'm very pleased with that. They gave me till tomorrow, actually, to respond, which is unusual. Usually you get about 2 hours. They'll send you a draft and say, hey, it's noon. Call us, talk to us by 3 p.m., otherwise we're releasing it to the street. So I was pleased they gave us some time, so I even made sure they were aware that we were in the possibility of potentially issuing debt for this police station, and they said it wouldn't have affected this piece of communication, so that was a positive as well. So after you've had a chance to read it, if you have any questions, I'm happy to sit down. This is the audience for this, obviously, are the people who buy bonds and those types of people, so it's not my language either necessarily, but it's a very positive thing for the city. On the agenda tonight is the first reading of the legislation for the funding for the police station. Dennis Schwally, he used to be Peck Schaefer, but now they're Dinsmore Scholl, is our bond counsel, and he drafted that legislation. So the voluminous nature of bond legislation is his, not mine. Obviously, we'll have conversation here probably at that point about what the amount to be requested or funded, but please know that we took a sort of a broad brush approach for the not to exceed amount, and then obviously you can actually request anything under that. You can't go above it, obviously, but it's just a not to exceed amount. And that's all I have. Happy to answer any questions.
You mentioned insurance, which made me think of a question that instead of talking to the architects, I'll direct to you. When we talk about accreditation for a building, that's obviously putting a building at a certain standard. Does that save us any money on insurance if we say our buildings or this or anything that had extra accreditation?
I don't know that per se, like a LEED accreditation would save you anything. It's more that's more of an energy. If you're LEED rated, it's more of an energy efficiency kind of a thing. I mean, obviously, I think our insurance premiums are probably going to go up just because we're building a brand new building and it's going to be a $4 million building. So obviously, it's going to go increase. But I would imagine it'll probably have fire suppression. So those types of things would assist us.
Yeah. And I think when you go, we are building a new building, so it may increase, but when you start looking at the risk and casualty of the current facility operating as a police station, not having fire suppression, not having proper holding, that all gets taken into effect when they start looking at our insurance rates. We met with our broker a couple weeks ago and reviewed all sorts of things and, answered a lot of questions about this, that, and the other about facilities, policies and everything. So I'm hopeful that we're going to see a better rate this year.
Good. All right. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have a question. Jamie, on the Moody's rating,
Yeah.
Do we go up, down, stay the same? Or is this something new that?
If you basically right now we are AA3 rated by community by Moody's. You go AA3, AA2, AA1, and then AAA. So eventually I'd like to get us a minimum to AA2. Some of that will be over time as we start to build our reserves and start to do the things we need to do. Knock wood, maybe eventually move up to AA1 or triple.
Okay.
So.
All right.
But right now they're not proposing, and we didn't ask.
Okay.
And that would just better rates and better.
Yes. The higher rated you are, the lower interest rate you pay, so it saves you money on your debt.
Like a credit score.
On the on new debt. Obviously, the debt that's already out there doesn't change.
Anything else, Todd?
That's good, thanks.
Mrs. Carter?
Nope.
Andy?
And Jamie, I'm sorry, I missed it if you said this. Did we change at all? Is this what we had last year? Do you know?
We've been AA3 for a while.
For a while. So it's really, the way I read it, it's kind of an average or a little better than average rating for municipalities.
AA3 is a good rating for a community.
Yeah, I just glanced through it, but I thought they said something about most are.
Well, when you're talking about globally across the nation, and you have a lot of different types of economic outlooks in different states and different communities, you've got more affluent ones that can be AAA, and some of those are even double or triple. So in other words, they're AAA by Moody's, S&P, and Fitch. And you've got your Upper Arlingtons and those types, Westlake up in northern Ohio. So those kind of communities. But they're tending to be older communities that have had time to establish the reserves and that type of thing.
Okay.
And what I'll point out on this first page under the paragraph that says finances, the city has a very healthy financial position, which is favorable when compared to the assigned rating of AA3. And this is what makes me proud. The available fund balance as a percent of operating revenues far surpasses the U.S. median. And additionally, the net cash balance as a percentage of revenues is far superior to the U.S. median. So I think that speaks favorably for the city.
And you mentioned like Westlake, somebody that's established. We've only been a city since '96.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and as you guys know, we're playing catch up on so many infrastructure improvements. So when we've had the conversations with Moody's, they recognize that we're going to be spending more than we're taking in for a period of time. But recognizing that the point has to have an inflection point where the line starts to go the other way, and I think BJ and I have had these conversations that that's why we have, for example, the $600,000 or $650,000 annually set aside for the road program on a go-forward basis. That's the type of stuff that will help us maintain the spending at sort of a reasonable being relative, but at a level that will help us maintain our reserves or enhance our reserves.
Very good. Anything else? Way over in the corner, Nate.
Good evening. In addition to my report, we've established the pre-construction meeting for River Forest on February 6th. Mr. Zetz signed some contract paperwork tonight for us, and we're moving ahead as scheduled. Well, actually, we're going to schedule some start dates. That's what we're going to do. Other than that, just kind of wrapping up and closing 2016 as we finish up our December reporting to the EPA and things like that. Next meeting, I should have a nice little report just kind of detailing 1 million gallons treated and just some of the data points that we track with some of the service work and service we provide, just a little snapshot of what we do and how many folks we talk to and things like that, just to give you guys some helpful information. In the report, I shared the information where we're at with Sugar Mill, and I'd be happy to answer any questions on that. It's just we have a situation where I think the water pressure is not as desirable as it should be, but it is above design standards that the EPA would have approved back in 2004 when they started this subdivision. So we're working through that, and I take into consideration the concerns of the folks. There's some things that they could do to help, but that's not always the best solution. That's not always what people expect when they call us. So I will tell you folks, as I've shared with them, there is no valve, there is no pump, there is not anything in my power or inventory that I can do to improve this now. If I could, I would, and we wouldn't be having conversations. The good thing is, if you look at it that way, that development is all but built out. So it's not like there's another 50 homes going in there that may play into this. But we're working with what we have and going to figure out what we could do in the future. But that will also require capital and with the idea to fix some other low pressure areas. Happy to answer any questions.
Yes, sir.
On your report, Nate, down at the bottom here, it looks like something got cut off. It says 1.5 times more. Was there something more to this? If you see down at the bottom, it looks like maybe there was some additional information.
Are you talking about the hydraulic modeling?
Yeah, hydraulic modeling used landing a
Yeah.
minimum of 750 gallons per minute.
Yeah, there's a second page.
Okay.
Yeah. So the ISO 500 gallon per minute is the standard. So that's a 500 gallon per minute demand across the entire system. So we plug in known data points and it kind of shows hydraulic movement of the water through our system. We simulate the 500 gallon per minute demand. Knowing that that's the minimum, we said, well, let's go a little higher. So we simulated a 750 gallon per minute demand. So while if you look on my one report where we drop below the 750 gallon per minute,
right,
we're still above the 500,
which is the minimum.
So it provides a little wiggle room, but it also shows some of the other areas in the system that I would say need attention. And there's only so many options to fix that. So,
thanks.
Yes, sir.
On the sugar mill, I know there's a note that you may go to their HOA. If you do, send me an email if I'm available. I'd be happy to go out there and talk to them.
Yeah, I open that to them just to, I know emails and phone conversations only go so far.
Right.
They've, of course, so you guys know, indicated that they want to come here and tell you guys, their concerns. So this is heads up for you, and I'm trying to do everything that I can within my power to at least get as much information. Any information we collect now will only help us in the future, but to what degree I can't make any promises at all.
How's, I know I ask this occasionally, how's the product?
The product is fantastic. We are working with some composting even here in the winter months, and what it's doing, we're increasing our storage capacity because we can stack the product higher than we could previously.
Stacking the product high.
Just leave that one right there.
Yeah.
All right.
Nobody stacks product like anything.
Awesome.
Mr. Lee?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'd just like to add that if you do go to the HOA, like Mr. Barstow said, I'd go as well. It's in my ward, so.
We'll stand right behind you, directly behind you.
That's great. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Nate.
Thanks, Nate.
Anything else for Nate? Very good. Well, hopefully you've read Scott and Alan's reports. Any questions for Mr. King regarding those reports? Yes, sir.
Do you know on this program how far along they are with
Which one?
the ramp program? This is Alan. Ramp program. How far along they are?
Design is underway. They've last Thursday we met for the kickoff. Design is underway, but as far as, I can get a schedule for you.
I'm trying to gauge when to have a street committee meeting, and I figure my opinion is that we should have that when they're about ready to start talking about the ramp program and
Let me
bidding it.
follow up
and
with you tomorrow.
So,
Yeah,
trying to get an idea when to have that.
that'd be great.
Yes, sir.
And just a couple things I want to mention about, or from Alan's report is, and Andy hit on one about the streets program being underway, the design. Council at the last meeting also authorized the design of the Mill Street culvert. That was part of our kickoff meeting last week as well, so that'll be underway. And one of the upcoming council meetings, I anticipate in February, will be legislation authorizing the Oak Meadow design. As we know, we plan to do design in 2017 with construction and slated for 18. So be watching for that coming. Certainly with the weather, we're doing well with salt. We did order some additional just to fill the bin back up, or fill the building back up, but the winter so far has been very favorable. We'll be hearing soon from ODOT to schedule pre-construction meetings for the Columbia Road Bridge project that is scheduled to take place this summer. That's the bridge that is just north of Broad Street on Columbia Road. And we should be hearing very soon, I hope by the end of the week, if not, hopefully next week, on the status of our OPWC application that we submitted for the culvert replacement on Columbia Road South, which would replace culverts and widen the road in a dangerous area. So happy to answer any additional questions, or if I can't answer them, we will certainly get back to you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. King, what progress, if any, is being made on the house at Mink and Broad?
None.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay. Chief? I'm sorry. Do you have
Can I
something
just mention a couple things on Scott's report?
else? Sure can.
I just wanted to point out the fact that he provided 2016 year-end stats on the last page of his report. Certainly, it was a busy year for the department. If you look at the number of zoning permits, inspections, violations, et cetera, that were completed. The other thing I wanted to mention is that, and I think this was either Alan or Scott had stated this at the last meeting, but Alan and Scott are dedicating several hours each week to review and begin creating a proposal for updates to the subdivision regulations. So as we, they're obviously another area that need to be modified, and they are working on those. So that'll be coming to council sometime in the future. And if I can take a step back real quick, I just remembered as we're talking about code revisions, I mentioned the change in the charter as it relates to the appointment of BZA and Planning Commission members. Our ordinances contain the same language, so right now ordinances say appointment by mayor with the confirmation by a majority of council. The next council meeting, I'll have legislation to change that to make it consistent with the charter changes.
Hey, BJ, also on the development committee, as far as the comprehensive plan and the subdivision regulations, at what point do you think those will be ready for a committee to look at?
Let me get back to you on that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Chief?
Last week, Detective Ramsey and Officer Ted Smith went to drone school. It was a 3-day course put on by OSB, free training. It'll help us better understand a lot of the civilian side. Also, they take a test on Friday to become official pilots that we could actually use them in police work.
Plus, I bet they really had fun, too.
Yeah, they're both drone pilots, so
Yep.
that's why. I said that.
Very good. Anything for Chief?
I have a question. I mean, Chief, is there a drone problem in the city? I mean, is the department getting complaints? My neighbors looking at my windows, or dive bombing my pet, or something like that?
As Mr. Hicken alluded to a little bit earlier in the meeting, there's somebody that has a neighbor that has one. I don't know that is it fair to say it's not an issue yet, but there were concerns.
Okay.
Make sure we're on top of it then. Anything else for Chief? All right, committee chair reports. Mrs. Carter.
Sir, the first would be the Development Committee. Andy brought up the topics for that. Obviously, it was canceled for this evening because the gentleman it's from Jefferson.
For Dixon Road development,
Dixon
a couple
Road,
gentlemen wanted to come in and provide a proposal, but they canceled.
Okay. So, I mean, regardless of whether they reschedule or not, I'd like to get a development committee meeting scheduled. I would like for it to be the next meeting so we can start laying out an idea of what we're going to do over the year.
And Kathy, will you be able to provide our meeting schedule for the 6th? Because we have a number of committees that are going to have to meet soon.
Andy?
Mel, just to let you know, I'm not here on the 6th.
Oh, well,
I'm
then
sorry.
we'll just wait until the next one
Sorry.
after that.
And on the 6th also, we start at 6:30 for interviews for boards and commissions.
And we don't have Mr. Lee on the 6th,
We
right?
can do the second meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm on duty. I won't be here the 6th.
okay. We can do the second meeting in February.
Why don't we go ahead and 6
I think
p.m.
Andy
on-
has to golf or something.
So do we?
He has important things to do.
Yes,
On the Ag Committee, do we have, Kathy, do we need a meeting, or are we just having public hearings?
We're having a public hearing on the 6th.
Okay,
Have your packets for you.
okay.
We didn't place, Scott had the packets ready, but it would be confusing because those that get paper packets would not have had those.
Okay,
So we will be putting those on the website.
okay. All right, great.
Since I won't be here for that, I'm the chair of that, is that something, there's a quorum with Mr. Powell and Barstow, or do we need to reschedule that?
No,
We're good. Okay,
that would
all
be
right,
a quorum.
fair enough.
Great, okay.
Yep, Tuesday forum.
All right.
Anything else?
Yes, the Park Board met on January 10th, had their organizational meeting. Dr. Ann Walther remains president, Jenny Ashbrook is vice president, and Cindy Friel is the secretary. The meeting times did move to the second Tuesday of each month at 6:30. If there are no conflicts, there will be first in council chambers. Should there be a conflict, they'd move upstairs to the conference room. So, there's a number of things discussed at the meeting. Our park manager, Mr. Ramsey, kind of gave us an update, said that, he's able to enter requisitions now, so things are going a bit more smoothly with getting things paid, so we're not having that hang up like we were, those growing pains, so that's going well. And he has a group of volunteers that help him with a number of things. And Corey, I think Corey's in that group. He's always looking, for extras, if anybody knows people who want to do that. So right now they're, I guess, inventorying soccer gear and gearing up for the season. There's a number of upcoming events that the park board discussed and wanted to get some direction on. As we've grown and our activities have grown and the events that we have in the city, more people attend, but we find that there is no process for us to have an event. Let's say the Easter egg hunt. There is not a point of contact per se who would make sure that the whatever nonprofit organization was putting something on had everything they needed, proper trash receptacles, porta potties, traffic control, police presence if necessary. So what we have is, a lot of growing, and the Cookie Walk is a really good example of that. With, it's dark, there's kids all over, people are driving up and down, and we need to, before we have an accident, which was worst case scenario, and to provide some structure in how our events go. So we're definitely looking for feedback on that, whether it would be the park board itself that things went through and there was a set of criteria that the event had to meet, or if it's Mr. Ramsey or whatever it may be. So those are the things that we need to look at. Veterans Green, per se. I mean, it's not necessarily designated as a park, but there were still the Christmas decorations up. And that is because we, you know, the city relies heavily on volunteers to accomplish things. And which is great because we have people that want to do it, but that's not a fair expectation. And it's certainly not a good way to do business. So need to look at some things like that, maybe some sidebar discussion. There was also discussion of naming the Leeds Park. Something, you know, that goes with the theme of the other parks that we already have. You know, Foundation, Citizens, Liberty, and the suggestion of Volunteer Park was made. So that is an ongoing discussion. Probably hear something about that rather soon. And one of the more important things that we talked about, and they're the items that we need to move quickly on to make sure that we stay on track, are the projects for the park, especially the municipal park parking lot before pool season. And then the suggestion about Foundation Park that was made at the end of last year about doing some restructuring of an entrance at each end, but, you know, not a connecting road through the middle, maybe a walking path, and possibly sending that to the street committee, looking at the ramp and seeing if there's any way we can combine those projects with things that are already going on so we can be fiscally responsible and hopefully stay on track and have them done as soon as possible. So I will be making a motion for that, and that's all I have.
Chicken?
Yes, I'm looking after checking calendars. I think we're going to have a committee, utility committee meeting on January 30th at 6 o'clock. And that should be a pretty busy meeting. Lots of stuff. And that would be Ms. Hayes, Mr. Walther, myself, Mr. Cooey, Mr. King, and yada yada. I believe Mr. King said he was going to draft the purpose, but if he doesn't, I will.
No, I'll have the purpose to you tomorrow morning.
Thank you, Mr. King.
You're welcome, Mr. Aiken.
Anything else? Any other?
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, Mr. Hicken first, El Presidente.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I just want to see if we need to take everybody's temperature on. We have interviews at the next meeting, or at the February 6th meeting, for some vacant positions, but there will be 2 council people that will not be here. And I don't know if there's a discussion that needs to take place where it's fine to have the interviews, but we're not going to fill those positions, or does everybody, I mean, if I was not going to be here, I'd probably want to be here if we were going to fill the position, but that's me. So I guess maybe that's an open discussion.
Are we able to hear those?
It's recorded. It'll be recorded and available on the website.
So we could have the interviews. The folks that wouldn't be here could listen to them. We didn't have to vote on anybody that night, and then we could, at the next meeting after they listened to the tapes, would we re-interview or ask them questions?
That's whatever council's desire is.
I hate to.
That's a lot of interviewing.
I realize that, but trying to speed up the process so these folks get into those positions, but just talking out loud.
I guess my question would be specifically to Mr. Walther and Mr. Lee, and this I realize this is a loaded question, but do you think you're going to be able to glean enough to make an informed decision based on interview questions asked and resumes submitted?
My opinion, if I'm with you, Tim, I would rather be here. I'd rather do the interview, if possible. If it's not adversely affecting those committees at this point, I would ask that we wait. But again, if there's a need to fill now, then yes, I could take that off of the tape and do what I needed to do to appoint. But I prefer to be part of it, if possible.
Mr. King?
What I will say is right now, every committee, as it stands, has enough for a quorum.
So how do we feel about pushing those interviews to, what would that be, the 20th? February 20th? Is that all right with everybody? Anybody see any significant problems with that? Mr. King?
Mr. Mayor?
Ms. Hoskinson?
Would you keep the advertising open that long for the spots? Or close it and have it on the 20th? Okay.
I think that's whatever.
I think it's whatever you want to do. I mean,
council
I don't
wants
think
to
that's, there's nothing legal, magical legal about that. I mean, you could, if you end up canceling the meeting on the 6th, you can keep the deadline. You can do whatever you want to do.
My suggestion would be to keep the deadline, cancel the special meeting on the 6th, and hold it on the 20th. But I'm looking around and seeing tacit nodding, so
It's appropriate.
I think that's what we'll
Well,
do.
you might actually want to make a motion. Tacit nodding sometimes doesn't. You use really great phrases tonight. Tacit nodding is, I would go with a motion at some point before we adjourn.
Okay.
Can't hear the nodding on the tape, right? Yeah.
It's by design.
Okay, any other committee chair report? Yes, Todd?
Well, not really a committee, but I am going to be setting up a meeting with Mr. Nicholson and Mr. King, because Mr. Nicholson put out what a fascinating, at least I found it fascinating, report on the state of income tax collections within the city and the rates and whose percentages of people who are filing and not filing. I thought it was pretty interesting. So we're going to sit down at some point, and then for my fellow finance committee members, expect a really exciting committee meeting on what's going on with income tax collection in the city. But I think it's seriously, it's an important topic, and it was just a very interesting report. So it's coming.
Okay. Any other committee chair reports? All right, on to ordinances. Ordinance 2017-4277 for a first reading.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Barstow.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Lee. Kathy, when you're ready. First reading.
Ordinance 2017-4277, this is the first reading, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $6 million of bonds for the purpose of paying part of the cost of constructing a new police facility and matters related to such bond.
Discussion? Yes, sir.
I know that BJ and I have had a couple discussions about the total on this, and I just kind of wanted to go back through that. And BJ, I'll certainly give you the floor if you want to go back through the total, but in looking at this, and I know we didn't get a chance to ask the architects whether or not the soft costs were included in that original estimate, but I've gone through the history from back in March all the way through. I had an original number in my head that this was $4 million, and then it was $5 million, and we're looking for $6 million now. Certainly understand the idea of asking for more than we need to have kind of a buffer, but wanted to make sure, from Jamie's email and also some discussions that we've had, there seems to be a misunderstanding about what's included and not included in the architect's estimate, meaning the soft costs are included.
Correct.
So that the real costs, as far as I can tell, or not real costs, I should say, the estimated costs from the architects are roughly what was presented tonight, plus or minus $5 million.
Correct.
I know that there are some costs for going out for the bonding, such, Jamie, you'd put $100,000 in for that, I believe, in your email. Some things that are included in the architect's contract, I think, were also broken out as separate items that were added to that amount to get to the $6 million. I just wanted to ask those questions.
No, very good. The soft costs are included in what was presented tonight, and the question was asked as far as the fees, and I'll start with the fees. What is included in this $584,000 for fees? That includes the contract that we currently have with Horn & King for the design of the project. So we're not, that's boiled in, that's baked into this cost estimate. They also, as they mentioned tonight, and we're going to confirm this with them, they've built in costs for issuance of the bonds into the soft costs as well, and also building permit fees. So this is pretty good as an all-inclusive cost estimate for the construction of the building.
As they were headed out of the meeting, I asked them if they would give me a breakdown with numbers. So don't give me just a list of what's in there. Give me bond issuance costs, we put in $100,000, and these are the various things. I'm headed the same way you were with like a list of how'd you arrive at the 584,000?
Right.
I mean, we currently have a contract, call it $485,000 for the design and architectural stuff. So if you back that out, then there's about $100,000 of costs, which are, I don't know how much were the bond, how much were the environmental, and all the other various things. So I think that'll give us a better idea of what
Well,
those costs are.
Yeah, in addition, they have bidding in their contract. They have, and supplying all the bidding, all the items necessary to bid, and providing management, their oversight.
Right.
Is in there also.
Right. It is, and as you, their oversight and everything is built into their contract, which is part of this 584, which is part of that, and also, you know, the bidding would be involved in that as well. So.
Right, in their price.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
you got it.
I guess I wanted to make just a couple points. You guys put together something back in March that was really good to go back and refresh my memory on, and that was the needs assessment. And it had in there, you know, an amortization chart for 20, 25, and 30-year amortization. Yep. And you did it between $4 million and $5 million. And I just wanted to point out to everybody that, you know, the difference between $4 million and $5 million, irregardless of the actual payment of the principal and interest, is, you know, for instance, on a 20-year amortization, is $70,000 between, that's per year, between the 4 and 5. It's, you know, roughly $60,000 if you go 25 years, and it's $55,000 if you go 30. You know, I started thinking about that in 20 years, you know, $70,000 of extra cost if you go to that, you know, so I'm making the jump to between $4 million, or I'm sorry, between $5 million and $6 million. You know, that same differential in cost, you know, over 20 years is $1.4 million.
Right.
I look at that as 2 years of ramp.
Right.
And so it's real important to me, and I know we had some discussions about this, and some of them were quite lively, but you know, it's real important to me that we just kind of really keep these costs as under control as possible, because, you know, you look back to our debt service being 8.9% of our budget. You know, I don't know what this debt service will increase that to. Now, Jimmy, you may know already. You probably already have that calculated.
For 18, it goes to 12.
Yeah.
So your 12% of our budget is debt service, and so, you know, in my opinion, every dollar spent on this really counts. And so I really want to look hard at the budget for this, and I worry about. Well, I understand your rationale about saying let's make sure we have not to exceed numbers. I don't want to give the contractor, or, you know, for that matter, you know, the ability to say, well, we can just spend another $200,000. Whatever, we have the money, we have it, so we can spend it. It's important to keep it under wraps.
Please know that council's the one that's going to authorize how much we end up going out for. And that's basically once we get a bid, bid process, and they come in at X number, whatever that number is, plus the cost of issuance, plus, you know, we'll take that number, and that'll be what we'll issue. We won't go for $6 million and say, oh, we got an extra $400,000 to do with what we wish. That's no, it's a not to exceed amount. If the bids were to come in and council says they came in $100,000 higher than we had hoped, but, you know, we want to do that, and we're going to authorize the administration to go ahead and sign the contract, which means we would need to then have that extra $100,000 in the funding. It just would have that flexibility.
And if I can just make a couple points here. First of all, you know, when there will be an estimate that's advertised with the bids, and it's going to be pretty daggone close to what we're seeing tonight, if not this. And correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, but we are unable to award a contract that's more than 20% of that advertised. So that's going to control the cost right there as it is, and that's not going to get us anywhere near $6 million. Second thing is, with the $5 million project, that was built into the budget projections for the next 5 years. And if I recall, and I'm trying to do this by memory, but if you look at the budget projections, and I'm going to take the income tax only as we look at this, that I believe in 17, the street fund is getting roughly 35% of the income tax collections, and the police fund's getting about 53 potentially.
Yeah, I think they're unchanged.
That percentage stays pretty consistent at those levels for the next 5 years. And that's at, you know, I think a pretty conservative increase in income tax collections as well. So my point being is that this project is built in there, it can be funded, and it keeps the budget pretty healthy, I think, when we start looking at the next 5 years at least.
Okay. Do we need to, can I ask a question? Do we need to amend the budget at all? Because right now we're allocating, or we're anticipating a bond fund of 4.5 million. Does it then, do we need to do anything with the bond fund on that one, if, through the budget, if this were to change to, say hypothetically, 5.5?
We didn't look at it, see where the numbers were. I thought I budgeted for $5 million, but I'd have to look.
He backed out the 516 for the other one, so
Well, we
there's
also-
4.5 in here.
But we were planning to roll it over, so there's the payment for the debt service
Right.
as well. So
I agree.
I'd
That's
have to
what
look
I'm
at it.
pointing out. That's all.
I'd have to
Okay.
Look at it.
Yes, sir.
Kind of to Andy's point, and this is more from my own education. We have we made a large fund shift, if you recall, for this project. Have we considered possibly using that money up front to like pay the architect's costs? And or how did you go about that when you?
The answer to that is no. The current plan, the budget, would use that money. That's the capital facilities fund. We took all the rent money from this facility for 15 and 16, and that's now in the capital facilities fund. And so every year we get between $100,000 and $120,000 a year in rent for this facility from COTC and the various tenants. That goes into the capital facilities fund, which council has earmarked for, obviously, for capital facilities. The intent was that we would use that to pay the sort of the first tranche of the debt service. To the
Okay.
extent that I can cover the debt service with the proceeds from that fund, I would use that, and then would fall short, then would be income tax revenue that would cover that. So if it moves some pieces around, but if we use that money to pay the $500,000, which we can, if we did that, then it just, we borrow less and the debt service changes, it would all pretty much come from the income tax because we would go through all that fund's resources. It's different pot.
I just wasn't sure because I was thinking about the exact same thing that Mr. Walther talked about, which is essentially borrowing less, right?
It's in the plan, but we can modify that if council's preference is to not roll the design and architectural costs into the construction cost and finance it over the life of the project. We can definitely change the structure of the deal so that we borrow just the construction and the issuance costs, and then when the notes come due in May, we take the proceeds from the capital facilities fund and use that to pay those off. And then.
And I don't know that
then we're
necessarily.
done.
I mean, I'm having no training whatsoever in advanced finance, or I don't know if that's. I would probably bow to the.
6 of one, half of the other. It's personal preference, really.
We'd want to know what our rates would be then, to really make that analysis, whether we want to pay cash, or deplete the cash, or pay, or borrow.
Well, I'm definitely not going to get a return on my
No, we're not seeing that
that's
either.
going to be greater than those the costs. So, and we're looking more closely at the private placement, which would have lower issuance costs.
So then it would pay off to go ahead and issue.
And if I can make it work in a shorter term, I would prefer to go a shorter term.
Well, that's what's going to be my next question.
Ideally, I'd prefer if we can handle it financially, and it makes good sense, to go 15 years with this project, because you're paying less in interest, and ratings agencies like Moody's like to see shorter lived debt.
Because this affects our debt rating, essentially.
Right,
This will
right.
affect potentially our
It
rating
says
on
it's
this.
more short-term,
Yeah.
it's not short-term debt, but it's shorter-term debt versus like a 30-year bond.
So your amortization on $5 million over 20 years was an average of $343,000 a year payment.
Yeah, and the rates have changed so
Yeah,
much.
that's-
I'm sure they have. I was just going to ask you where.
John Lewis, our
Yeah, that's-
the city's a financial advisor to the deal. He and I are meeting tomorrow. We're going to work through some of them, see what they look like now.
Will you redo these? Would you be mine just if you?
Yeah, he can
just
get
throw
me
them to us
something,
so
yeah.
we see 'em?
We'll rerun those. I would just be cautious using those.
I didn't want to use it. I just wanted to mention that what you had in March was
Year ago.
343.
Yeah.
I'd really be interested to see what it is now.
Right.
So, okay, thank you.
And it'll be helped too when we get the information back from Horn and King as far as the 584 and how that's broken down, because I don't want to double up. If I've got cost of issuance in the debt side, I don't want to have the cost of issuance in here as well.
That's what I found going back through their contracts and stuff, was the doubling up. Okay, thank you.
Barstow?
Mr. Mayor, I think let's try to get as much information on this as we can as we move forward. We've got 2 more readings, but let's try to get as much information on the breakdown of these different costs so we can make the decision whether we want to take money out of capital fund and pay for the cruiser shelter, just, pay for it, not finance. If we wanted to go finance a shorter term, what is that gonna cost? So we know exactly how we can save, how we can best allocate the money, because it's a big decision. So the more information we can get, the easier it is for us, and the sooner we get it. Great, thanks.
The less we borrow. Any other questions on 4277? That was the first reading. Okay. Ordinance 2017-4278 for a first reading.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Hickman.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Barstow. Kathy, when you're ready.
Ordinance 2017-4278, this is the first reading. An ordinance to rezone property located at 1244 Boulevard, parcel number 064-0684660-00.022, totaling 3.804 plus or minus acres in the city of Pataskala from professional research office pro zoning classification to the multifamily residential RM zoning classification.
Discussion. Okay, on to resolutions. Resolution 2017-008, a resolution authorizing the city administrator to enter into contract to purchase 2 new fully equipped police vehicles through the State of Ohio Competitive Purchasing Program.
So moved.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Walther, seconded by Mr. Lee. Discussion? And roll.
Lee,
Yes.
Hickman,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Resolution passes. Any motions tonight?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to make a motion to direct the Streets Committee to review the plans for the repairs at the municipal parking lot and the entrances and road, I use that term loosely, at Foundation Park.
Got a motion?
Second.
Seconded by, Mr. Barstow. Discussion?
Yep, I got a quick
Yes.
question. Timing-wise, I'm just a little bit concerned. I view this as something that really needs to occur very quickly. I don't know, in discussion with BJ just a few minutes ago, I don't know when we're going to have the next street committee meeting. I'm trying to wait till we get more information from the ramp and have something that we can, evaluate, not only the ramp, but the engineering for Oak Meadow.
Okay.
Maybe you've got maybe there's something we can do.
I think there's something we can do in there. First thing I want to say is on Thursday at 9, Alan, myself, and Dave Ramsey are meeting to game plan for all these CIP improvements. We've done that with all the CIP stuff, and we're finally able to get together on Thursday to do that with those. As far as the Foundation Park Drive, the gates we had talked about installing and council decided to go ahead. Those are in the works. We'll be talking about the sewer system over at Foundation on Thursday, getting some of Nate's input on that as well, and then the municipal park parking lot. So those discussions are occurring. We'll be putting those game plans together to do those. And I think once we have a better idea what is needed, and I believe Alan has that, but for myself, what is needed for the municipal park, looking at rolling that into the ramp. Plugging Jobs Henderson into that as part of it.
Mr. Mayor, the only concern I have, BJ, and I trust you guys are going to get together and discuss this, is just that the drive, road, whatever, through Foundation Park has been brought up a number of times, and I don't want it to fall to the wayside. I would like to see something change this year. So I think we need to make that a priority in the discussions about a redesign, what we can do in-house to save money, and then put it in a way that it is no longer has through traffic.
So it's kind of a two-part. It's the paving and the fencing, which you mentioned the fencing is in the works.
Yes.
Okay.
Previously, council authorized installing fences, or not
Or
fences,
gates.
gates. 2 areas halfway through the park, we'll call it, to prevent the cut-through traffic. And those gates will be identical to the gates that we already have. Those are in the works, and the guy is fashioning those right now, and they will be installed prior to the park opening up, the gates of the park opening up in the spring. So, yeah.
Well, and I think, it would stop some of the through traffic, but you also still have the situation where you have hundreds of children playing soccer and running around and people walking up and down there, and then cars coming through there, blasting through there. So a time when you would likely have those gates open, is that correct?
Those gates would remain closed.
All the time?
All the time unless needed for emergency access or for
Okay.
some unforeseen reason. But the desire is to leave those gates halfway through the park closed all the time.
As far as the ramp and such, and if you'll check with Alan, February 20th being the next meeting that we could have a steep street, I have no problem putting this into the street committee agenda, essentially. But I start, February 20th is going to be quickly March, which is quickly, pool time. So I just don't want to wait. I don't want to hold up anybody in the process of getting that plan put together. I know we talked about Jobs and Henderson, putting something together that would show that the municipal park, or municipal being done. Could they have something for us by the 20th of February for that?
I don't think that'd be any problem at all.
Okay, then
I
I
could
think that-
amend my motion to direct administration.
Well, I don't know. I think it's okay. We still do it under
Leave
the
it
street
as is?
program as long as they have that information.
I'd like to point out that the same 3 people are on development, which is already meeting on the 20th.
Right, let's
That-
go.
So we might as well
That
just
are on
hang
the
out.
streets, so that might kind of dovetail nicely.
Yes, Kathy.
I don't have a calendar in front.
I think it is. I think it's President's Day.
President's Day.
Someone's birthday?
We work on President's Day.
Yes, it is President's Day. It should be the 21st.
Yeah, we're open
I
President's
started to
Day.
say the cities, I didn't think
We
the
have a
city.
council meeting that night, don't we?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
we're
think
open
the city
President's
closed
Day.
for President's
Open's
Day.
President's Day.
Yeah, we don't take that day off. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
We used to?
So it would be the 20th then?
Yeah, it's still the 20th.
Okay, good. I'll have to work on the 21st.
So you're.
I'm gonna leave it as it stands.
Most of your motion got answered, but okay, she's left it as it stands. Any other discussion on this motion? Roll call, please.
Hagan,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes?
Carter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Motion passes. Any other motions tonight?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to cancel the February 6th special meeting and reschedule that meeting for February 20th, 2017. Deadlines relating to the posting to remain the same. Postings.
Got a motion?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Carter. Discussion? Yes, sir.
Time for that, 6:30?
Why don't we find out when the other 2 committees are about to meet? And
Probably should have that.
Sure. I'd like to make a motion to cancel the February 6th special meeting and reschedule it for February 20th, 2017. Deadlines relating to the postings to remain the same.
Probably need to put a time in there, though.
Okay, I'll say
To be determined.
6:30.
6:30.
That gives us a half hour to interview people, and that's never been enough.
I'll need to check, I think we.
It's going to be a busy night.
But I want to make sure that we didn't schedule.
Leave the time open?
Why don't we leave the time open until we can
Yeah, let's-
pigeonhole everything in?
Yeah.
Can we leave a time open, Brian?
I guess you can, because you have to figure out the schedule of the rest of the meetings.
Let me ask
We
you
get
a
it.
Question too. When we
If we
start
get it posted
getting
in
into
time.
interviews and it goes to 7 o'clock and we're supposed to start the regular meeting, what's the protocol on stopping?
Technically, you should stop the meeting because you have a publicly noticed meeting that's about to start at 7 o'clock. And for everyone who came to watch that great show, you have to start that meeting at 7 o'clock. So I say to people like that, I mean, so really what you would technically have to do, if for some reason you can't get those done in a half an hour, you'd have to adjourn that meeting, have a council meeting, reopen that meeting at 9 o'clock to finish those interviews. So probably be a good, well, you can do whatever you want. Probably be good to get those done in a half an hour. Otherwise, those people would have to stay until after your council meeting. Because you've got to start the council at 7 o'clock.
Gotcha.
So the alternative to this is just continue to have your special meeting on the 6th, do your interviews. Tommy and I will listen to it on the tape, and we go ahead and do the appointments on the 20th.
I'd rather like do the interviews from 5 to 6 and have everybody be present, if everybody could be here.
That's what I was just going to say. You're going to probably, I don't know how many you're going to lose
I'm
at 5 to 6.
fine with you doing it when I'm gone next meeting. I'm okay with that. I can listen to it.
You don't have to appoint. You can just listen to them and
It sounds like the 20th is going to be kind of a mess to try to do this. So,
I withdraw my motion. Right?
So how do you like the show so far, folks?
More popcorn.
Popcorn maker. in the
Any other motions? All right, additional citizens' comments. Anybody wish to speak tonight? No? All right, we'll go around the room and we'll start with Mrs. Carter tonight.
I have nothing.
Nothing. Mr. Barstow?
I have nothing.
Wow.
Nothing.
Mr. Lee's nothing. Mr. Prez?
Nothing.
I just have one thing. I had a scout call me
Broke.
for an Eagles. Why, was everybody else? Oh,
No.
Gotta find
Mike,
something
don't
to
worry, I
make
had a
fun
couple
of you.
things, don't worry.
Peer pressure, peer pressure.
I had a Boy Scout call me. This is important. He has an Eagle Scout that he wants to, Eagle Scout project. I'll probably have the scout leader and the scout come in February to talk to you about it if I get enough good vibes from you guys. But this youngster wants to tackle the 2 cemeteries, Switzer and the one on McIntosh, and straighten up the headstones and get it looking really nice, which we've been talking about for years. So if I see some good nods here, I'm going to tell them to come in and make a little presentation to council about heading in that direction, okay?
Yes.
Do they
Very
need
good.
materials? What materials do they need? They need mortar or anything?
No.
Again, we're just starting.
Okay.
Yeah. They'll assess them, and they did ask for help. I've already asked Alan. Alan said that he would pitch in, and so it'll be a joint effort. Very good. Suzanne?
Bells ringing every morning at 9 a.m. Really cool thing. I get to do it. It's fun. They make the announcements. They pull kids out of a big jar for at our school. We have a behavior wheel, and if the kids move up on the color wheel, it's because they've done something above and beyond.
You're keeping
And so
kids in a jar.
Did I say that? We do.
It's a really big jar.
I was like, how does that work?
It's
Give
a
me some tips.
huge jar. We keep it in the gym.
Pull them out just in case.
So anyway, their names on a piece of paper get pulled out of a jar, and they come up and they meet me upstairs. And as soon as announcements are over, we pull the rope and ring the bell. So it's really cool. Next week, it changes. The kids are actually, the 3rd graders have been asked to write persuasive essays stating why they think they should be picked to ring the bell. So we're incorporating the writing. And so my own daughter, you should see her essay. She believes she should be picked because X, Y, and Z. I'll bring that sometime. Anyway, so they're tying in the writing. The other thing is Cookie Walk. We're going to meet and we're going to start planning for next year. That meeting's coming up in a couple weeks. And I think I said this a couple of weeks ago. I don't remember. The Story Walk is underway. So we've changed a couple of ideas. We're going to focus on different mediums and different artists and how they portray parks and green spaces. So we're focusing on the parks. And so we're going to kick that off and look at how different artists paint parks. And so we're going to tie in our own park to the Story Walk this year and then have kids come up with quotes about how they feel about the parks and then put their quote. So good things is happening. I'm done.
And just for the record, Suzanne and Tim and myself actually climbed up the ladder into the rafters of that old building, and of course I went up to the bell room, but that was pretty scary. But that's pretty neat. It was cool, pretty neat. So, Andy,
It was okay.
Yeah.
I've got a couple things. One, I wanted to ask BJ, Nate Strom, I wanted to see if we could get him back in. I don't know when that contract comes back up for renewal, but I believe it's been almost a year now since we had the half of the county here to make sure we approve that. I just wanted to make sure we talk to him before that comes up and then actually invite him to some potentially a development committee meeting so we can ask some more particular questions of what he's been doing, on behalf of Pataskala. Second thing I wanted to say was, when we were talking about the cookie walk and the parade, Christmas parade, I was very quick to talk about the safety issues and the city's involvement, and I was not quick enough or not smart enough to say how great the involvement was of the Pataskala Lions Club. They do a lot of stuff in Pataskala. A lot of it goes unnoticed, but it's for a lot of great causes, and I just wanted to make sure we gave them some additional or the correct recognition for that project and other projects that they work on. It's a lot of different things that we all have become very familiar with and rely upon. And lastly, I wanted to apologize. Last week or last meeting, we had a charter issue that I was part of the committee that it went right past me. I couldn't remember if it was a planning and zoning that we changed or BZA that we changed. But I would ask that two things. One, it didn't seem like it was very good recognition for the committee, so I want to thank the committee again for all the hard work that was done. But secondly, we probably all should take a look at. I know I went back and re-looked at the changes that were made. We get used to doing it one way, what the charter said. We made a lot of changes. There was a lot of different, not only grammatical changes, but we made a lot of fundamental changes too. So I just suggest that for everybody.
Yeah, I actually had Jess print up 2 copies for me so I could keep them on me, or at least close to me at all times. So
a helpful thing, we gave council the old version and the new version, one of them being red line, so you can really pick up what was changed pretty quickly.
I just want to make sure we have the updated one on the webpage.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
That's all. Thanks.
Mike?
I don't have anything.
Nothing tonight? Boy, you've been pretty quiet.
I make a motion to.
I move we adjourn.
Gonna make
Second.
There you go, you get it.
Hold on, Kathy needs something.
Yes.
I just want to bring to your attention, it could still change. With the change for the Parks and Rec Board meeting on the second Tuesday. BZA also meets on the second Tuesday, as well as PBR 4 times a year. So we'll have 3 meetings going on. We need to, we're going to have the location for the 3rd meeting.
We've done that before. We've been flexible with the PBR. I believe they use the mayor's table one evening. There's it's difficult to schedule when there's nothing else going on, and it seems like the park board is the one that gets kicked around to different dates. So I say we stay.
All right, anything else? I'll entertain, you did the motion, and who was second?
Wait for the roll.
Suzanne?
Sure.
Everybody.
Okay,
All in.
roll please. Mike Powell and Suzanne Hayes.
It was a
I guess.
tie.
It was a tie.
Doesn't matter. I'll give it to Mike.
Yes.
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 Yes?
Meeting adjourned.
Seats down.
Well, it took me a year to start remembering that. I'm going to roll Timmy. All right. I'll talk to you.
As a school teacher, is that a major part of your day,
Gotta roll.
putting the seat
Gotta
down?
roll.
What's that? Yeah, see ya.
It's not.